Good morning. How y'all doing out there? Been away for a few days. Had a lot going on. A lot of death has just swooped through my hometown, and we had four deaths in 4 to 5 days. Well-known people, very well-known people who have touched many lives. Just some real talk. Life is too fleeting to take anything or anyone for granted. There are so many things that we could talk about surrounding death. We could talk about the way people get brand new. We could talk about how people use exclusion as a way to get back during a time of death, or sometimes to prove to themselves that they're important, or to hold a position or a title. We could talk about how family members argue and fuss about who was the favorite, who wasn't, or about money, or about what was left. Or we could talk about the legacy. I want to talk about the legacy. What will you leave behind? What will be your legacy that you leave behind? What is it that people will say about you? We all are quirky. We all can get attitudes. We all have ways about us that everybody's not pleased with. We all have things about our own selves that we're not pleased with. But what is it about you that your neighbor, your fellow man, someone way back from kindergarten through high school to college, or alternative schools, or IT technical schools, or whatever you did, whatever your endeavors, military, whatever, what will people say about you? The legacy is so important. The dash from here to there, what you did in between, is so important, people. How real were you? How truthful, honest, loving, giving, caring, loyal were you, or are you? Because that is really what matters to people. Because the little fights and arguments and the BS and the bull crap that we get into in between, when you have a core that is pure, your heart and your motives, that's what they'll remember. All that other stuff don't even matter no more. Because the one thing about it all is you can get in an argument and you can make up. You could tell somebody off and you can apologize. You could wrong somebody to the core, but you can make that thing right. But the one thing you cannot undo, people, is undie. Once your eyes do this, nobody can reopen them. Hear me. What will your legacy be? I don't care if you was a tyrant up until you seen this YouTube video. I don't care if you was the hatefulest person up until you seen this. This is your opportunity to say today, I decide to leave a legacy. I decide to be a loving and a giving and a forgiving person. Me being a child who always felt that they were unloved, who was abused, who was everybody else's everything to them, never knew what I was going through till about my junior year in high school. We got drunk and I told all. And I remember my friends cried with me. Some of those friends were not even friends like we used to be anymore, but it's okay. One thing they can say about me, I'm loyal. I'm still their friend. They may not be mine for real. And I know the ones that ain't for real. But because of who I am, I still show love. Because that's who I am. What legacy will you leave behind? Well, people say, oh, she was fake, she was fraud, he was phony, he was this. He was always in some mess. He was always keeping you in some mess. He was always, or she was always in trouble. She was this, she was that. You know, what will people say? Of course you're not perfect. Of course I'm sure not perfect. First to tell on myself. Of course, your neighbor's not perfect. But beyond all the quirks and the imperfections and the flaws, what does your core speak to people? What does your spirit say to people? What does your aura say to people when you walk in a room? What does your existence mean to people? If you left the earth, will there be a void? If you left the earth, will people miss you? If you left the earth, will somebody go to reach for the phone and break down because they realize you no longer can impact their life like you once did? What legacy will you leave behind? Will people say, no matter what they went through, they kept a smile on their face and they were a warrior and they fought till they could not fight no more? And even in the middle of their crisis or their battle, they picked up extra warfare materials to fight for you. What legacy will you leave behind? What legacy will you leave your children? The greatest legacy you can leave them is their belief system. And believing in the higher power, as some call him, but his name is Yahshua HaMashiach to me. What legacy will you leave your babies? I don't care if they 44, 59. What legacy will you leave your babies, your children, that God so diligently entrusted them to you? What will you leave them? What will your legacy be? Will you just be somebody that rant and raved and cussed and fussed and kicked up dust all your life, and then they can say, child, they was crazy. Girl, they was always said that mouth. Or will they still say, they was crazy, that mouth, but that they had a heart of gold. They loved and they would give you their last. Or will they just have all your flaws to look at? And bank on them and have to give a eulogy about that? What legacy will you leave behind? Death has no color. Death has no age. Death has no certain way it's taking people out. What legacy will you leave behind? One thing I know for sure, no matter who has ever tried to mistreat me, misuse me, purposely wrong me, purposely exclude me from childhood to now, all those people, God has granted me an opportunity in some form to show them love. Because that's who I am. And so, I didn't say it was easy. Because some people have wronged you to the core that it hurts so bad that you don't want to love them. And you don't want to look past their flaws. But when you can do that, what legacy are you leaving behind? What legacy are you leaving behind? We all need to think about that. And those of us that say, I don't care. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care. They can say what. Baby, bye. Everyone has a level of concern of what someone feels or thinks about them. Now, should people's opinions control your existence of how you want to live? No. But if your living is affecting everyone else around you in a negative capacity, then yes, ma'am, yes, sir, you should care. What legacy will you leave behind? So, y'all, my subject today is just, what legacy will you leave behind? It's important to know that. There's so much stuff that we have going on. So many things. So much hurt. So much pain. So much death. But when it's time for you to say good night on this side, make sure you've touched a life. Make sure you were somebody else's light in their darkness. Make sure that not only did you leave people behind smiling, crying, but leave them impacted. That they will carry on whatever gift you left in the earth that God granted you to carry and to give to them. If we all would be concerned about our legacy, I think this world could be somewhat of a better place. Leave behind a legacy that transforms lives. And remember, boo, always praying for you. Respectfully, yeah, Monty.